have hope that is alive in our world. Amen.
You may go to Sunday school.
Will you please pray with me our prayer for understanding? God, help us to know and share your grace in Jesus Christ. Amen. And from the prophet Isaiah. Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz, saying, "Ask a sign of the Lord your God. Let it be deep as Sheol or high as heaven." But Ahaz said, "I will not ask, and I will not put the Lord to the test." Then Isaiah said, "Hear then, O house of David. Is it too little for you to weary mortals that you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child and shall bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel. He shall eat curds and honey by the time he knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land before whose kings you are in dread will be deserted. The Lord will bring on you and on your people and on your ancestral house such days as have not come since the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, the king of Assyria." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Amen. Marauding tribes were sacking what was left of the Roman civilization. The period we call the Dark Ages were beginning. The great libraries of Europe were on fire. The administration of Rome may not have been gentle or even just, but it did impose order. And as it sank under the waves of flame and blows of axe, it took with it texts and histories and liturgies. In the midst of great destruction, perhaps the physical demolition of everything and everyone he knew, an educated man of faith, probably some unknown monk, wrote a prayer for deliverance. Penned in Latin, it began, "O wisdom from the highest heaven, come." They are called the great O antiphons, responsive songs written to be sung at daily prayers in the evenings of the last days of Advent. One verse for each day of the week leading up to Christmas. Each verse representing a different biblical attribute of Christ. O wisdom, O Adonai, O root of Jesse, O King, key of David, O dayspring, O King of nations, O Emmanuel. First chanted in earnest longing amidst the cold, dark, medieval midwinter, they are plaintive words. Advent begins in longing. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lowly exile here. Here on the first Sunday of Advent, we are miles from Bethlehem. We begin the journey in anticipation. But it is not yet time for glad tidings of great joy, my friends. The angel choirs must still remain in the wings. The great joy and the angelic songs will come, but later. If we get the longing part, that is. Because without longing, there can be no Christmas. Without O come, there can be no rejoice. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lowly exile here. Like those chanting monks, the Israel of verse 1 knew all about longing. They are a captive nation, an exile community in need of ransom, a people in mourning. They were inheritors of a proud dynastic tradition. They and their forebears were chosen people, the conquerors of Canaan, cornerstones of the empires of Saul, David, and Solomon. But pride is a sharply dual-edged sword. Without humility, pride breeds hubris, arrogance, a sense of entitlement, a sense that the world is yours for the taking. The Israelites were taken into exile because while they were more than eager to embrace their status as God's special people, they had become reluctant to live up to the moral responsibilities that accompanied that status. They had fallen from God, worshipped idols, neglected the poor, grown lazy. In exile, they felt that their God was distant, had deserted them. In truth, they were the ones who had distanced themselves from God, not God from them. It is for this reason that Isaiah announces that God will bridge the gap that human beings have created and will come and live among them, Emmanuel, God with us. Advent invites us to camp out with those ancient Israelites, to own our longing,
to ask ourselves, how is it we have grown distant from God? Life gets busy. The demands of work, the overstuffed calendars of our children, and before we know it, things of God get squeezed out. It happens easily, you know. Because the journey of faith takes intentionality and energy. It takes study and commitment. If follow me were easy, there'd be a whole lot more people doing it. And then we wake up one morning wondering where God went. Feeling cut off, deserted. Or maybe life gives us a shot in the head. The college we desperately want to go to rejects us. A relationship implodes, a job prospect evaporates, a child disappoints, and God takes it on the chin, and we drift away. Or maybe those seductive greener grasses sidetrack us, and we come to care more about our own wants than the wants and needs of others. We need to be ransomed from the captivity of pride. Because in exile, status trumps humility and competition bests cooperation. We need to be ransomed from the captivity of our impulses. Because in exile, anger gets the better of patience, and we are as quick to dispense judgment as we are slow to bestow mercy. Ransomed from the captivity of despair. It feels like something is missing. A friend once came to C.S. Lewis, despairing about feeling abandoned by God. As they sat in Lewis's sitting room in front of a blazing fire, the friend laid his soul bare before Lewis. As they talked, Lewis used the fire poker to move a glowing ember from the fire to the stone hearth. The conversation continued. And a little while later, Lewis pointed to the now no longer glowing but ashy gray ember and asked his friend how that ember lost its heat. Because you moved it away from the fire. Correct. And your spiritual life has turned cold because you have moved away from your fire, your God. O come, Emmanuel. Life is dark in part because it is fraught with struggle. And in part because we doubt whether God is there to see us through the struggle. And so in the second verse we invoke the day spring, the dawn to come and cheer us out of our gloom. For those exiled Israelites, the gloomy clouds of night could be interpreted as the bleakness of living in this purgatory. For those medieval monks, the fear that the hordes would eventually reach them as well. For both the exiled Israelites and the monks, the dark wondering if the gloom would ever lift. I remember having a conversation with my niece Sydney during her final year of a PhD program in clinical psychology. Her internship required her an 80-mile each-way commute on the beautiful but rarely uncongested New Jersey Turnpike. And so 8-hour days, work days turned into 11 and 12-hour days. What a drag, I said to her. To which she immediately responded, it's only for a year. You can stand anything for a year. So too is suffering. If we know there is an end in sight, we can find the strength to endure. But when there is no certitude of an end, the despair can be terminal. Our longing for the day spring implores us to keep the faith when things are hard and when faith seems far from us. Because there's no end in sight. Death's dark shadows will be put to flight. The gloomy clouds of night will disperse, and we will again rejoice. O come thou day spring, come and cheer our spirits by thine advent here. And finally, we are reminded that faith is personal, but it's not private. That what we personally desire can't stop with only us. What's good for me is good for all humankind. It is not just about Israel or those monks or me or even us. O come, desire of nations, bind all peoples in one heart and mind. Our Advent longing is a universal longing. By whatever name we know God, the yearning for a loving being to bind all peoples transcends doctrine, dogma, and creed. Bid envy, strife, and discord cease. Fill the whole world with heaven's peace. Someone calculated that in the past 3,500 years, there have been only 320 years of peace. That works out to just over 7%. No wonder we yearn for peace. No wonder Iraqis yearn, and Palestinians yearn, and Syrians yearn. It would be easy to despair with those kinds of odds, would it not? Easy to toss any hope of peace completely out the window. But we can't do that, can we? Maybe because that 7% felt so right. And also because one of Jesus' names is Prince of Peace. So we're in the peacemaking business whether we like it or not. And it all begins with our predisposition. An old man lived in the center of a desolate and hopeless city. The kind of city that had once been thriving and proud, but that time had long since passed by. Every morning when this man left his house, he would stand on the street and yell, "Love, peace, and righteousness." Every morning, without fail, he came out, stood there, lifted his face to the sky, and at the top of his lungs cried out those same three words: love, peace, righteousness. Finally, the next door neighbor was fed up with the noise. And he went out on the street and confronted the owner. He said, "What are you up to? Are you crazy? What do you think you're doing? Every day you're out here yelling love, peace, and righteousness. You're a fool. Don't you know no one is listening to you? This city is full of hate and crime. There is no love of neighbor or love of peace to be found. So please, would you give it a rest? Don't you know that you can't change the world?" The old man looked at his neighbor for a moment and he answered, "You're absolutely correct. My yelling about love, peace, and righteousness probably won't change the world. But the one thing that it will do is stop the world from changing me." And so we don't stop yearning. Oh, come, desire of nations, bind all peoples in one heart, one mind. We don't stop because we trust that we will get to rejoice. Rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. We don't stop because we are bold to believe God's promises and that God speaks truth. In today's passage, Isaiah directs King Ahaz to ask for a sign to strengthen his faith about what to do about his kingdom being threatened by those invaders. But Ahaz refuses to ask God for a sign. Big dummy. And what follows is one of those wonderful God moments. Too bad, I'm going to give you a sign anyway. Look, Isaiah tells him, the young woman is with child and shall bear a son and shall name him Emmanuel, God with us. Emmanuel. God's message of hope for our Advent longing. God's logo of love for Ahaz and for us. At the end of our, our Advent longing is a manger in Bethlehem. and in it a child, a sign of great love. God in the flesh, with us, for us. That is why we can dare to own our longings, our deep yearnings, and why we do not despair. Rejoice, rejoice. Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel, and to you, too, O saints in Stamford. Amen.